Much appreciated. All right, our next item is Senator Hall has 3 bills. We'll start with SB 428. We'll give the room a minute to clear, and then we'll invite Senator Hall up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more bills. It's 25 after 4. We're going to move a little more quickly, and I'm really going to insist that we keep to the 2 minutes each, 4 minutes each side rule as we go forward. So, Senator Hall, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Excuse me. SB 428 would exempt probation, parole, and correctional officers from jury duty and criminal jury trials. For years, sheriffs, police, UC, CSU, BART police, municipal court marshals, and various other peace officers have been exempt from jury duty in criminal trials. Probation, parole, and correctional officers have similar duties as these peace officers, yet are often called to serve on juries only to be dismissed because of their occupation and perceived bias against a defendant. Requiring a probation, parole, and correctional officers to report to jury duty only to be dismissed causes delays in the jury selection and the judicial process, and put these public safety officers at risk to personal harm by requiring them to disclose identifying information to defendants and to the public. Extending the existing peace officer jury duty exemption for criminal trials to probation, parole, and correctional officers would expedite the jury selection process, also protect officers, and ensure the unbiased integrity of a jury pool in a criminal trial. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. We have Alberto Tarico from the State Coalition of Probation Organizations, Danielle Higgs, Chief Probation Officers of California, and Craig Brown, California Corrections Peace Officer Association, here to testify in favor of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 2 witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Danielle Sanchez on behalf of the Chief Probation Officers of California. Pleased to co-sponsor this and thank the Senator for his leadership on this. The impetus for this bill was really threefold. First, probation really is viewed as an arm of the court. As such, part of our responsibilities are working on pre-sentence or pre-dispositional reports on both adult and juvenile cases. As such, we're doing extensive background work with the defendant in those cases to make those pre-sentence reports to the court. Therefore, when it comes time for sentencing and when that person is potentially placed on probation or subsequently at some point on mandatory supervision under our care and custody, our department is then responsible for the supervision of those offenders. And we see this as kind of an inherent conflict in our role, both on the front end of the system and then also in the supervision and treatment of offenders. Second, often as part of the jury selection process, we have probation officers who are serving in the jury selection process and providing personal information when asked questions about their employment, family, and other such information. We, of course, see this as definitely a kind of a peace officer safety issue regarding our officers. Lastly, while in many cases we actually don't see our officers end up getting selected for a jury and they do ultimately get dismissed, there is definitely time away from not only caseloads, but especially in our institutions on the probation side for our juvenile institutions. For smaller counties that have very strict minimum staffing ratios, it can be very, very difficult to find somebody to backfill that, which requires overtime and coordinating to ensure that we are adequately caring and providing in our institutions. So for those reasons, we certainly seek today with this bill to be included in similar categories of peace officers with our counterparts of sheriffs, chiefs of police, and many other peace officers. So we ask for your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good afternoon. If I could, Madam Chair, split my time with Mr. Brennan, President.
Fine. We'll give you each a minute then.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Members of the committee, as you know, the job of probation officers has significantly changed over the last 5 years with the implementation of public safety realignment. The caseloads are larger. The defendants are more dangerous. And we're asking the probation officers to basically implement realignment. Since their job is more dangerous, we believe that it's important that their duties line up with those of traditional peace officers, deputy sheriffs, rank and file police officers. As all of you know, there is a longstanding public policy to protect the identity, particularly the residences of law enforcement officers. That's why you don't have access to their driver's license. That's why you don't have access to their home addresses. That's why they're not required to serve on juries. Through the voir dire process, the first question asked is your name, occupation, address. That information will be disclosed. I'm respectful of the analysis that suggests that some of this information does not need to be disclosed, but the reality is that it is. We are not getting the benefit of the hardship exemption. Mr. Brennan here, the president of the State College Probation Organization, will testify to some specific examples of probation officers that actually served on criminal juries through the voir dire, all the way through verdict. So I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and esteemed committee members. My name is Paul Brennan. I'm president of the State Coalition of Probation Organizations. I'm also a probation officer in San Joaquin County. Our bill, SB 428, would exempt probation peace officers from criminal trials. As you know, since the implementation of Governor Brown's realignment of public safety, probation peace officers are now responsible for the oversight of most individuals who would have previously completed their sentences in state prisons, in addition to the ongoing oversight of individuals completing sentences and commitments in county jails and juvenile institutions, respectively. As a result, the job of a probation peace officer becomes more difficult and dangerous every day. Our jobs require us to prepare reports for the court and supervise offenders. As a result, these duties necessitate our interaction with offenders, which creates a risk to our safety both on and off duty. While it is unthinkable today that a local police officer, deputy sheriff, public defender, or district attorney would serve on a jury during criminal trial, probation peace officers today serve on such juries. Probation peace officers from around the state have provided us with examples of trials that they have served on. The voir dire process in itself is invasive and revealing of a person's personal information. Keep in mind that while the officer is answering these questions, the defendant is present in the courtroom. Some of the questions that one of our members had sent to us, which is a common story: where do you live and what is your specific area of residence? How many children do you have and what are their ages? What is their occupation, or are they a student? Where does your significant other work? Are you or any of your family members in law enforcement? Where do you work?
All righty, if you could wrap it up.
Okay. Several decades ago, police officers and deputy sheriffs were made exempt from both civil and criminal jury trials. In the years since, probation peace officers have taken on a greater responsibility comparable to traditional law enforcement officers. With this bill, we are asking for probation peace officers to be exempted from criminal trials only. Some critics have argued that passage of this bill would remove us from the jury pool. This isn't a credible argument, since we would still be available for civil trials. It is time to recognize the enhanced duties and dangers for probation peace officers and extend the jury duty exemption to us.
Thank you.
We believe this bill strikes a balance between the safety concerns of our members have brought forward and our civic duty as citizens. I do have examples if you're interested.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, other witnesses in support, very briefly, name and affiliation, please.
Madam Chair and members, Pat Morano, Theron Reed and Associates, representing the Orange County Employees Association, in support.
Thank you. All right, any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
Madam Chair and members, Lexi Howard with California Advocates on behalf of the California Judges Association. The California Judges Association is opposed to the categorical expansion of jury exemptions because it does minimize the jury pool and presents a greater burden on the remaining prospective jurors with a great deal of respect for the hard work of probation and parole officers. We are concerned that the constitutional arguments with regard to even a juror's right and opportunity to serve would be abridged by this bill.
Thank you. Next witness.
Sharon Riley on behalf of the Judicial Council. Regretfully, we are opposed to this bill. The council has a longstanding concern and has opposed many similar bills in the past that relate to specific categorical exemptions from jury duty. And the council does believe that the courts have a constitutional obligation to ensure that the jury pools are representative of the community, and that there are, most importantly, that there are enough prospective jurors in the courthouse each day to avoid having to dismiss last-minute criminal trials for lack of jurors. So that is an ongoing concern of the council. I did note with concern, and we are appreciative of the public safety concerns that probation officers had, but would note that a probation officer, like any other member of the jury, if they do have specific concerns about revealing information in a public context, they can certainly ask to speak to the judge with the presence, of course, of defense and prosecution there. So there are some protections in place for those sort of concerns. And then finally, I think I would be remiss if I didn't note that this week is California's Jury Appreciation Week, which the legislature passed several years ago, and it's the 18th anniversary, and we do appreciate the service of probation officers and the public for their service on juries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in opposition? All right, well, I'm going to start it off. I have historically opposed exemptions. I think that if we're going to have a constitutional system and jury system, everybody has to serve. Everybody should serve, or at least be available to serve. I note that judges aren't exempt. District attorneys, prosecutors, even legislators aren't exempt. I don't know if any of you have been called for jury duty. I have. My husband, who was then an attorney, actually was called and was on a 2-week criminal jury trial, much to our surprise. And that can wreak havoc on a practice, I can assure you. But the fact of the matter is that there is a right for every juror to seek in-camera voir dire, telling the judge that he or she is uncomfortable with answering questions in public. Legislators would certainly probably want to be able to access that right, as would many people. Judges, I suspect, as much as anybody. So I think that it is, I think, moving us in the wrong direction to start exempting people. And I did inquire, actually, of my husband, who also was a judge and just retired, what he thought about probation officers. And he said they actually make excellent jurors, which I thought was very interesting in criminal cases, because they see both sides of an issue. I thought that was a very nice commendation. I know that right now you don't really give a darn because you want this bill to pass, but that's really too bad, because I think it's a nice plus to you, and after this all ends, that I hope you take it as the compliment which it is intended to be. So I think if you look too, the legislature has really consciously moved away from a system providing for extensive categorical exemptions. In fact, up until 1988, judges were exempted, and then they were replaced back into the jury pool for that reason. So it's really a question of whether or not if we start exempting people, and all good reasons, you work hard, the likelihood of being brought to serve on a criminal case is perhaps less than for other people, but not necessarily so. I think it's important that we as citizens all accept the responsibility to serve on a jury. And in fact, I would suggest to you that most people who end up serving on juries find it really quite an exciting and inspiring opportunity to participate in the duties of a civilian who is or of someone doing their civic duty, whether they're civilian or otherwise identified. But, so I am not going to support this bill. I just think that it moves us in the wrong direction, and it's not because they're probation officers. I just think that we should not be exempting anyone who is qualified to serve from doing that. I think it's just our constitutional duty, our duty as citizens, and I appreciate your concern, but I think that from the constitutional perspective and also from the perspective of the courts being able to function with everybody being part of that jury panel who's qualified to do so, that they should be required to be available for that service. So I appreciate your concerns. I very much appreciate the work that probation officers do, because I think that they are really a critical component to our judicial system, but also serving as a juror is also very much part of that. So if there are any other questions or comments, yes, Senator Morlock. Is there a CPA form here somewhere?
I'd love to talk about tax credits.
Oh, good, okay.
Madam Chair, but with all due respect to my probation chief, Steve Sentment, I'm in your court. I'm someone who believes no better, no worse, and everyone should participate. I appreciate the workload under AB 109, but while I was trying to serve as a key officer of the County of Orange during its Chapter 9 bankruptcy, I had to do jury duty. And so it was very difficult to break away and do that, and then only to have one of the judges call me into her chambers and then wanted to know how her deferred comp was doing. You know, am I putting it back together for her? I'm Senator Hall, I'm concerned, you know, reading the bill, you still have in here that exempted from civil and criminal. And
I'm sorry?
Your bill says...
No, it's just criminal.
It says, no, it says any civil or criminal matter on page 2 of the bill. At least I'm looking at the little gray thing.
No, it's just criminal.
Well, then was it amended?
Should have been amended. That was an older draft.
Well, that's what I got. That's what I get to work with. So I don't want to argue with anybody, but I'm just reading what I got.
Senator, if you look on page 2, lines, let's see, start with the second paragraph. Notwithstanding subdivision A peace officer is defined in subdivision B or C of section 830.2, subdivision A or B, shall not be selected for voir dire in any criminal matter.
Okay, so then line 2 does not apply.
It's only criminal, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Then I stand corrected, Senator. That's
It's
why I bring it up.
accepted. Accepted.
But I'm still. I'll just be quiet.
All right, anyone else wish to speak? All right, Senator Hall?
Yes, thank
if
you.
you'd like to respond and close.
Absolutely. You know, as a law enforcement officer myself, I carry a badge and a gun. And in
It's good to know.
Well, I think everybody in the legislature knows, except in the Capitol. We, as a reserve deputy sheriff, we're exempt. Sheriffs are exempt. Deputies are exempt. Police, UC, CSU, BART police, municipal court marshals are exempt because we put down the bad guys. We protect our streets against murderers and child molesters and vicious criminals that attack our society each and every day. Legislators don't do that. We put ourselves on the front line, not knowing whether or not we're coming home each and every day. Not one person in the legislature has done that. And yet we have to go and be selected to serve on a jury of a potential family member that we've placed away, or a partner of a gang that has been placed away, and giving information about one's family, their wives, their children, the school they attend, their places of employment, respectively. And we're saying that it's okay for them to place their lives each and every day in harm's way, but then go to court and reveal their public information to the friends of the very people that they placed away. I'm not asking as a legislator to be exempt. Legislators don't put themselves on the front line of the battlefields of our community and have to worry about whether or not you're going to make it home at night. This is not asking for peace officers, probation officers to be exempt from civil trials. This is asking for probation officers to be exempt from hardcore criminal trials where people are doing bad things, and this pocket of professionals have to manage that each and every day on the street. Criminals, each and every day. Something, with all due respect, no one in this committee has ever had to do. No one in this committee. I have. These guys have. And so while I believe in everyone's right to serve, and rightfully so, but right here, sheriffs, police, UC, CSU, BART police, municipal court marshals, and various other peace officers are exempt. Probation, parole, and correctional officers carry the same responsibility each and every day. They're in the same class. And I think we have a responsibility, as they do, to protect and serve. This honorable body has a responsibility to protect and serve as well, those who are protecting and serving us and keeping us out of harm's way from hardcore criminals. And so I respectfully ask for your support of this legislation. I believe, in my opinion, that it's a very good piece of legislation. I believe out of the integrity of this body and for what we stand for, to protect and serve as well. I think this is in the right direction. And I am, and Madam Chair, you know, with all due respect to your position, and, you know, the comment about, you know, probations make good jurors or not, that is irrelevant to the issue of people putting their lives on the line. People are people. All people will make good of anything, I'm sure. But we're talking about people who put themselves in harm's way, protecting a class of people that every day are placing themselves in harm's way to defend our community.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, we're looking for a motion. Senator Leno, do you have a comment?
I have a question that I'd like to ask either of the Judicial Council or the Judges Association.
All right, very briefly, because we did have Senator Hall's close, so very briefly.
Right, okay. I'm not insensitive to many of the comments that Senator Hall has just made. And to save time, I won't list the many classes of peace officers that are not exempt, which have been listed in our analysis. So I know that there are other categories of police officers that currently are not exempt and could honestly make the same case as Senator Hall. But my question is, the undue hardship allowance would or would not be sensitive if a case were made by a probation officer in a courtroom to the counsel, to the judge. How does that play out? So, for example, a probation officer says, I've had some dealings with the gang. One of their members is represented in court today as a defendant. I think that there's some risk to my life.
So I think the answer is that a judge has discretion to listen to the individual facts and circumstances of any juror. That could take a variety of factors. Obviously, this would be, I think, one of greater concern to a judicial officer, and it's certainly something that that a judge could do and dismiss a juror.
I would agree with
On
that.
that
Judges
basis.
are very sympathetic to law enforcement officers, and typically if a law enforcement officer before them said, I am a parole officer, a probation officer, I have a concern, the judge would welcome them to speak privately with them.
And I would indicate, and, well,
That's
don't
not
shake.
true.
No, that is true.
It isn't. I know for a fact.
Okay, wait, we're not going to have an argument here.
well,
You
Senator-
got your piece, now I'm going to respond. I'm the chair, so I will speak. Any juror has the right to ask the judge to be taken into chambers for voir dire. Any person, that is the law. So if there's anyone who has a concern, as articulated, they do have that option. And in fact, it is my hope that if probation officers feel that they are sitting in a courtroom with someone and it's compromising to them, they should know that they have that right. And I believe that if they don't, that should be part of the training. If you are called to serve, and I would have to respectfully disagree that this isn't about whether or not we honor your service defending us. This is a question about who should be called to be a juror as part of one's civic duty, and who should be called to be brought into the judicial process to help judge serve as a juror of one's peers, which is a constitutional right we have to be tried by a jury of our peers and to go through the process and either be selected or not selected. This is not about respecting police officers, and with all due respect, I take umbrage to the suggestion that that's what we're doing here. This is about whether or not we have a constitutional responsibility as citizens to be called as jurors and to serve if we're called and accepted into the jury box. So with that, is there a motion? The motion by Senator Anderson.
I'd like to close.
You've closed.
I have
Thank
not
you.
closed.
You have closed.
Well-
Senator Hall, you've closed.
for the record, I haven't.
Do pass to the Senate floor. Please call the roll.
Jackson?
No.
Jackson, no. Morlock? Anderson? Aye. Anderson, aye. Hertzberg? Leno?
No.
Leno, no. Monning? Wykowski?
All right, that bill has one vote, one aye, 2 no votes. That bill will be on call.